Hi, everyone. Welcome. We are excited to have you all here for our first show of the semester. We are taking it back to New Orleans. So this is a trip down Bourbon Lane. And so we are excited about what Chef Tom and Chef Steve have prepared for you all today. Again, this is our first show for the semester. So we are super excited and super pumped to bring you a high energy show. Every semester, we will continue to upgrade and go above and beyond, as I told you before. So this is a new semester. So we want to bring you high energy programming as promised. So you all are in for a treat. So I'll turn it over to Chef Tom and Chef Steve.
Thank you, Cindy. I welcome everybody to Live from the Chef's Apprentice. We are so excited to be back. I've missed you, Chef Steve.
Yeah, I see you every day, Sam.
Oh, yeah. Well, but I missed this. This was
There we
fun.
go.
So we had a lot of fun getting ready for this morning. So we're going to take a trip down Bourbon Street, New Orleans. Mardi Gras is coming up early March. Before I go too much farther, I want to make sure I give props to Merrick Green. He's in charge of our veterans, and he supplied all the Mardi Gras decorations for our show today. So if you notice, I have some beads on, and thank you, Merrick, for stepping up and coming through and offering it. So if we can take a shot of some of the ingredients today that we're going to work with. All right. So, of course, New Orleans is right on the Gulf of Mexico. Shrimp is a big deal. It's one of the biggest shrimping areas in the world. And Cajun seasoning, made famous by Paul Prudhomme, right? We're going to be doing some work with that. We have a couple of different things here. Okra, bananas. Bananas are big. New Orleans is one of the big imports or ports where bananas come in. Peppers, onions, celery is known as the Holy Trinity of Cajun cooking. So it goes in almost all the ingredients. We're certainly going to have some of that today. Andouille sausage is one of the things. It's a Cajun style sausage. It's a little spicy. It's not like a traditional hot sausage like we would get in our area, but it's a great product. So we're going to have a couple dishes with andouille sausage. So before I go too much farther, there's two types of cuisines that come out of New Orleans. One is Creole and one is Cajun.
Ils disent que c'est idéologique qui est fini. Que c'est fini, soit il y a un truc.
Okay. All right. So two types of cuisine that come out of New Orleans. One is Creole and one is Cajun. They're very similar. They came from two different ethnicities. One of the biggest difference in ingredients is Creole almost always has tomatoes in whatever product they make, where Cajun does not. Creole is also associated with more in New Orleans, in the city, a little higher class customer, where Cajun is a little more outside of the city. Cajun also, they actually, Cajuns migrated from Canada. So they have a French influence and they like to work with butter, but they couldn't get all the ingredients they had where they came from. So they changed things to adapt it to what they had. So they were a little more of hunter-gatherers, but very similar in style. Some of the same dishes, they go back and forth. But today, the first thing we're going to do, because this takes a little bit of time, is we're going to do a Cajun Gumbo. The Cajun Gumbo, the whole trick to a Cajun Gumbo is the roux. So the roux is flour and oil, not flour and butter, flour and oil. So I'm going to start this because it's going to take a little bit of time. And while I get the roux started, I'm going to start on another Cajun dish. So what I'm putting in here, I don't know if you guys can see that. All right, I'm heating up my oil. I have a little less than a cup of oil and about a cup of flour. And I want to stir that up and mix it. And the whole basis of where all this flavor comes from is you have to brown the flour. So you actually have to cook the roux till it gets a kind of a hazelnut color. So we're going to do that. We're going to let that go on. And it'll start to simmer. We have about 6 different recipes today, so I'm going to get that rolling. So the next thing I'm going to do is work on what's called a mock choux. So mock choux is a traditional New Orleans dish that has corn, tomatoes, and then the Holy Trinity in it. And a lot of times people add bacon, they add seafood, they add andouille, that kind of stuff. We're actually going to do a crab mock choux. So I'm going to start off with some butter. If you had bacon fat for this, it would make it even better. It could taste even better. So the corn I'm using is frozen corn that I have thawed out. So remember, I've always told you before, frozen vegetables are blanched a little bit. So if it was fresh corn, I would probably start earlier in the process.
Now, while Chef Tom is doing that, I see a lot of new faces. Sorry, Chef Tom, but I see a lot of new faces. People are still coming in. So as Chef Tom and Chef Steve will begin to explain the recipes and what they added, for those of you who are new, please feel free to drop questions in the chat. The chef absolutely love questions, so you can ask them about their technique. If you're not sure on where to get the ingredients or how to purchase it, you can ask them that as well. They love questions. So for those of you who are new, please ask whatever you want. The chefs will be more than happy to answer the questions. Thanks.
You bet. We do love questions, especially ones we can answer. So got my butter melting. I don't want it to brown. So Cajun Trinity, just for a little color, it's traditionally white onion, but I'm going to use a little red onion here. Get that going. I got my green pepper and celery. I'm going to start sauteing that up. So we're going to cook this on high. You can see here my roux is starting to bubble a little bit. Whole trick is you got to keep stirring it. Really important. Because it'll get, if it gets away from you, it'll burn. And then you're starting over. Get our veggies moving. Let's see what else we got. So because my corn is already blanched, I want to get my vegetables partially cooked. I don't want them to be crunchy, but I don't want them to be mushy either. Chef Steve is stirring our gumbo roux. So gumbo is like a traditional in-the-home one-pot meal that almost everybody in New Orleans has cooking on their stove. They serve it with rice. You've probably had it in restaurants where the rice is already in it and it's served as a soup, right? Traditionally, that's not really how you do it. You serve the rice, you serve the gumbo around like a mound of rice, and then you put some rice into the gumbo as you eat it. We're going to show you how to do that. All right, my veggies are cooking. Put my corn in. Get that moving. Thank you. Get some sizzle to that. Hot sauce. Got to get some Cajun seasoning. So Chef Steve, do you know who's responsible for kind of bringing the forefront of Cajun cuisine to America and making everybody aware of it?
Can't quite remember, Chef.
Okay, there was a chef, and back in the 80s, he came out with a cookbook called Louisiana Kitchen, and Chef Paul Prudhomme. And he was famous for, he's actually the one that inspired blackening, the blackening of fish, the blackening of chicken. He's the one that kind of introduced it and got everybody on it, and then it took over the United States like crazy, and people still do it. So I actually had a chance to meet that gentleman. Nicest guy in the world. All right, so we're cooking here. I'm going to add some heavy cream to this. I'm going to add some canned diced tomatoes.
Now, Chef Tom, did Paul have a famous saying that he used to always say?
I don't know that. He wasn't an emerald guy. So I don't know. But I do remember meeting him at an ACF conference in 1992. And a very, very nice guy. And he very much influenced my style of cooking. Because one of the things I learned from him was serve food in season. Make sure you serve food in season. Everybody, and I still remember him saying, everybody puts a tomato on the salad all year long when tomatoes don't taste good all year long. They only taste good for 3 or 4 months out of the year. So put something else on. Let the food do the work for you. And I changed my menus after I heard that at the restaurant I was working at. And it was one of the big things that helped me become a better chef. All right, so what we're going to do is let this cook. So because we added cream, it has to reduce. So we're going to cook that at high heat. Going to put some seasoning in here. We're getting there. Put some Cajun seasoning in. Sometimes you can't have enough of this. Then we're going to put some hot sauce in. Starting to brown up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You can see the color of the roux is starting to change. You guys can get a shot of that. It's starting to get a little more of a light brown color. You can start to smell it. It starts to smell a little nutty, like it's toasted. That's really, really important. All right. I'm going to let this cook. This is going to take about 4 or 5 minutes to reduce. And we're going to add our crab meat at the very end because our crab meat's already cooked. And we kind of want to keep it whole. All right. How we doing, Chef Steve?
Looking good.
Okay. So once our roux is where we want it. Now, one of the tricks, if you're doing a lot of gumbo, is toasting your flour in a low oven. So you get the flour actually browns on a sheet tray, and then you build your roux with that. But we're only doing demonstrations, so we don't need to do that. But large volume settings, that's kind of a tip, is to brown your flour like on a sheet tray. Preferably a conventional oven instead of one that has a fan. All right, just a little while longer. Anybody have any questions so far? Has anybody in the room been to New Orleans?
I have.
You
And Mary,
have?
yep, I have. And Mary Green said he has. I'm looking to see if there's anybody else in the chat.
Pete Miller, our camera guy, says he has. He's jumping up and down over here, raising his hand.
Jessica Greek said she has as well.
Awesome. So you're going to feel right at home today. All right, let it go. I'm going to just jack it up just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to come over here, switch sides with you.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. So our roux's got that kind of toasty nut flavor. So one of the things we want to do next is add some of our onions. We're going to add some of the Trinity. Okay. And I got here diced celery. It's a little bigger dice, probably a 1/2 inch dice because it's gumbo. I want to see it. Okay. And I added a little bit of red pepper to my green pepper for color. I know there's a difference in the taste.
All right, chefs, you guys got a few questions coming in. Oh, Dave, you've been to New Orleans as well. That's good to know. So first question, do some of the dishes that you have learned from other countries, do you use some dishes that you have learned? Oh, do you do, I'm assuming it meant to say, do you do other dishes that you have learned from other countries?
We do other dishes for other shows. I'm not sure I understand the question.
I was trying to.
So gumbo actually was brought in from West Africa. So this is where the influence came for gumbo in New Orleans. All right, that smells good. And you can see how some of that is coming up. So saute my veggies. I'm going to get them started. I'm going to add my andouille because I want to extract some of the flavor from that.
There's another question also in the chat, but I'm trying. It says, "What is that poured in the brown?" And then it looks like the question is cut off.
Can you guys repeat? I can't hear.
Maybe they're rechatting the question because they just asked, "What is that poured in the brown?" But then there's nothing else that goes with it. So maybe they're asking about what was poured in the roux, perhaps.
So flour and oil was what started in the roux. We browned it. We cooked the roux to brown it. Now I added my holy trinity. The holy trinity is celery, peppers, and onions. I just added my andouille sausage because I want to extract some of the flavors from that. Okay. Chef Steve is reducing the mock choux. Bless you, Chef Steve.
Bless me.
Oh, I thought you sneezed.
I did not.
Okay. All right. So at this point, you keep stirring this. And I kind of got it up on pretty decent heat. It's not quite on high. But I want to extract some. I just don't walk away from it at this point. You keep stirring. You can see the roux in there. It's brown. Now I'm going to add some chicken stock. We're going to stir that up. Because that pan is pretty hot, even though the stock was room temperature, it's not going to take real long to thicken up. And you see how it kind of gets that brown color. There's no caramel color added to this. This is all natural, the browning of the roux. So what I did for my next two ingredients is I took some chicken thighs and I boneless, skinless chicken thighs, put a little bit of oil on them and some Cajun seasoning, and I just baked them off in the oven because I wanted them cooked. I didn't want to, because andouille sausage, for the most part, is cooked. It's cured, so you could eat it right out of the package. So I want everything to kind of go in cooked, except for the very last ingredient, which is shrimp. Because the shrimp are so small, they cook really quick in the hot liquid. And if I put them in too soon, then they get kind of mushy. So I'm going to get this going. I think you're looking good there, Chef.
I think
Steve.
so
Have
too.
you tasted it?
I have not tasted it yet.
Okay. Well, it looks like the liquid's going down. So we're going to, before Chef Steve tastes it, see if it needs any more seasoning.
Just a little bit more seasoning.
A little more Cajun seasoning.
Yep.
All righty.
Should be good.
Chef Tom, question: what kind of Cajun in season are you guys using?
We're using McCormick's right now. That's what's available. But I know there's a whole bunch of different ones out there that you can get that are crazy. But this is what we have in food service. All right. Chef Steve sent these good. So I'm going to use the crab meat I'm using today is not real crab meat. Real crab meat is super, super expensive. So I'm using what's called surimi, but it's an imitation crab. But it looks very, very nice. So we're going to put that in. And it's already cooked. So all I got to do basically is toss that in there and get it hot. Now you could do any other kind of protein with this. You could do shrimp. You could do crayfish tails. You could do bacon, ham, andouille, whatever. If I wanted to go with something a little different, And that's just about right. It should be, the liquid should just spread just a tiny bit. We're gonna plate this up and we're gonna garnish it. So Chef Steve is working on the gumbo here. Chef, you could probably add that chicken.
Sounds good.
The gumbo's starting to thicken up just a little bit.
Chef Tom now and Chef Steve, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this, but somebody put in the chat that they love Slap Your Mama Cajun
Yes,
seasoning.
yes,
I've never heard of it,
I,
but
I have heard of that.
I have
And
not.
it's very good. Yes.
okay, the chat is saying it's really good. I've never heard of that. I'm not quite sure I'd be brave enough to get something that says
Yeah,
Slap Your
it's a
Mama.
little spicy, but you know, you control how much you put in. That's the trick. So,
Thank you, Jessica, for that suggestion. Now, Mary Green, I see you said I have to bring you some two-step. Is step two also another Cajun seasoning?
pardon me?
No, there's a message in the chat that says I have to bring you some two-step. So I don't know if that's another form of seasoning. Mary Green, is that another form of seasoning? Yes, so there's another seasoning that's Cajun. It's called step two, apparently. Have you heard of that, Chef Thomas, Steve?
I have not.
I have not either.
Two-step. No, Merrick, so you may have to introduce that to the chefs. They have not heard of that.
All right, so there's our first finished dish, which is our mock choux. Okay. It's a nice, it can be a side dish, it can be an entree. I don't know if you guys want to get an overhead shot of that, if it's possible. Yeah. Looks beautiful. Smells good.
That was great.
Serve it on the side with hot sauce. Right, and our last step is I'm going to add my shrimp. I'm going to just let it cook a little bit, and then I'm going to let Steve start on his dish, so we can keep the ball rolling.
Now, Chef, why do you add the shrimp later?
Well, because they're so small, and if I don't want them overcooked. So the heat from the gumbo is going to cook. All right, and it's just that, and it's like the last step you do. You put them in here, probably let them in here 2 or 3 minutes. The shrimp will turn pink. They're ready to go, but everything is cooked to the right process. If I put them in at the beginning, they get mushy. They start falling apart because doing a lot of stirring.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you ready?
Yep.
Chef, while you guys are doing that, Dave wants to know, is there a number of times you can taste test? Is there a limit to the number of times you can taste test? He has a few people laughing here.
There is no limit, but just remember, make sure you taste with a disposable spoon, not your finger. And if you want to taste it, I always like to taste what the finished product's going to be like. Like if I wanted to taste my mock choux, I'd put it in a little side dish, put some green onions in, so I know what the whole taste process is. So, all right, we're going to move that over here,
All
Chef.
right.
We'll bring your skillet down here.
Sounds great.
Ms. Wajuma, I hope I said that right. Thank you for joining us. And I see that you said, I love the thickness. Even if there's nothing else, I agree with you. It does look healthy.
All right. While Chef Tom finishes up the gumbo, I'm going to start on our next dish. It's a Cajun cabbage skillet dish. Now, traditionally, you could do this in a cast iron. It'll turn out the best, but if you're doing it for a presentation, we just have our induction burner here that we're using. So I'm going to start out with our andouille sausage. Like we said about it before, it's already partially cooked. So we want to get some nice color on that. Just going to throw a little bit of oil in there. Chef, I don't know about you, but one of the best things I like about Cajun seasoning is all the aromatics that you get from it.
Yep.
It just comes out so fragrant from them all that it's very appealing to not only your palate but also your senses. So I'm gonna get this going. And you just want to stir this every so often.
Chef Steve, question for you. How long do you usually brown the sausages?
What was that again? I'm sorry.
How long does it take you to brown the sausage? Do you do
Just
usually outside?
Great question. Just a couple of minutes, because as the heat gets to each side of the cut sausage, it'll get a little bit of a char on it, which is what you're looking for. So I'm starting to get a little bit of color already on it. Now, if you were using raw andouille sausage, it would take a little bit longer to do. So using the cured andouille sausage would be is a little bit better. Takes a little bit less time. All right, so I got some color on that, so I'm gonna put this back in my bowl. All right. Now I'm gonna start with some onions. Just a splash of water. And the water helps steam your onions. You also get some color on them, but you're also steaming them as well. And then what will happen is you'll get some of the natural flavor and color from what we call fond on the bottom of your pan. Will get into your onions. And I just thinly slice these. And the best thing about thinly slicing them is they're all uniform, so they all cook the same. Uniformity is really, really key in making sure all your components in your dish come together just great. All right. Now I'm going to add our cabbage in. I'll take a little bit out of that, just a little much, because you don't want to crowd your pan. Because what happens when you crowd your pan is even though everything's cut the same, it'll start to cook unevenly. Cabbage is one of those universal things that you see in very many different cuisines. I personally love cabbage. Me personally at home, we do just a simple pierogi and sausage and cabbage. What about you, Chef? How do you like cabbage?
Well, I'm a coleslaw freak.
Okay.
I love coleslaw, all different kinds of slaws, and sauerkraut. And I eat it raw too. I eat cabbage raw.
I love cabbage too. I usually do cabbage and corned beef.
Cabbage and corned beef.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's an inexpensive ingredient. It goes a long way.
All right. I had some red chili flakes that I added in for a little bit of heat. Get that going. How's our gumbo coming along,
So
Chef?
our gumbo is ready. So I'm going to do the presentation here. So what I did is I made some rice and I put it in a plate. I'm going to just show you that here. Put it in a soup cup and I turned it upside down into my bowl. And I'm going to put my gumbo around it to do my presentation. It's going to look a little different at first, but just hang on. Bear with me.
As he does that, our cabbage started to cook down a little bit. That's one of the things is it retains a lot of water. So as that water comes out of it, it shrinks down in your pan. So yeah, I could have added all that cabbage, but it would just been too much in your pan. And by the time it cooked down, everything else just wouldn't have cooked the same. I also added some garlic in while Chef Tom was starting to present his gumbo. Get that nice aromatics coming off from the garlic. And the red chili flake that I added in.
Okay, so I have my rice in the middle. Basically, I'm gonna pull this up so that I have called a timbal. It's a timbal of rice right in the middle. And as you eat your gumbo, you basically feed off of that a little bit at a time. Eat some of your gumbo, eat some of your rice. Nice and easy presentation. That's the way you eat it.
All right. So while he was presenting that, I also threw in some butter into our dish. And I also threw in some apple cider vinegar.
Yeah.
And you want to let that vinegar cook out, almost all but cook out. So then you just have the flavor of it. You don't want as much of that acid in there coming through your dish. Then we're going to add in, I have some Gala apples here that I sliced thin. Adds a little bit of sweetness to your dish. And
Chef Steve, what do you have your apples in?
I was just getting ready to get there. We worked so well together. So what I did is I soaked my apples in orange juice. The acid in the juice will help them from turning brown on you. They also make different products that you can also mix your apples in. One of them that I know of is called Crisp and Fresh. You mix it with a little bit of water in a container, and then you soak them in there, and they stay nice and crisp, and they don't lose their color.
What? Natural is always better.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it is. Yep. There's been many times I come across using that product that they don't always stay nice and fresh.
Yeah, some of them have bisulfites in it. Yeah.
Chef Steven, Chef Tom, question for you. Do you know if lemon juice is just as effective as orange juice?
Very much so. Very much so. Lemon juice is probably the best one to use.
But even that, you need to thin it down with a little bit of water.
Yeah.
Where orange juice, you can use it straight up.
All right. It's coming together. So now I'm going to add back in my sausage. I pulled it out because it's already cooked. So you don't want to continue with me constantly stirring this. It'll continue to break down and fall apart, and then you won't have a nice presentation at the end. You have all those nice colors in there. You got your apples with the skin on. You got your color of your sausage, the green from the cabbage. All right. And you want your apples to have you want to cook them a little bit, but you want them to have a little bit of a crunch as well. As a nice another component to your dish. All right. Any questions at all about the skillet or anything else?
Smells very good.
All right.
Green onions?
Yes. As you see it, and we're just going to top it with a little bit of green onions right on top. All right. There we have our cabbage skillet dish. Get this out of your way.
And we are rocking and rolling. So I'm going to do a couple different things. These are obviously very traditional type Cajun dishes. While doing some research for the class, I came across an old-fashioned Cajun cake, and it really sounded good. And so I made one this morning just to make sure I knew what I was talking about, because that's really important.
Now, Chef, I have to ask you, you hear a lot about king cake.
Yes, king cake. King cake is a traditional Mardi Gras cake. It's kind of like a cinnamon roll almost cake. And then they spread it out. They put icing over it and different colored sugar, and then they bury a plastic baby in the middle. And I'm not sure, Merrick could probably answer this question, but I think whoever gets the baby, it's good luck.
Michael and Jessica want to know what time can they come to sample all of this?
As soon as we're done. So this
And
cake is
Jessica's
actually
serious.
Pardon?
She's in Harrisburg. Jessica's
Okay.
a new employee and she's in Harrisburg, and I think she's extremely serious.
Just tell her to come on over to Cooper. I got to feed IT first, just so you know. So this cake is really simple ingredients. So 2 8-ounce cans of crushed pineapple with the juice. Okay, don't drain it. 2 eggs. Half a cup of sugar. Some baking powder. 2 tablespoons of baking powder. I'm going to whisk this together. And I have an 8x8 pan here that I sprayed with some nonstick. I like to add the baking powder before I add the flour, just to kind of let it activate a little bit. So once the baking powder hits the acid of the pineapple, it starts to get moving. This is 2 cups of flour. I'm going to just fold that in. Where's my folders? Need my folders. Let's fold this in. Comes together really simple. 5 or 6 ingredients. And we're going to bake it. I'm going to put it in a pan. Bakes about 30 to 35 minutes. You won't be here to see the end of this one come out, but I will show you what one looks like. And just make sure everything's incorporated. And mix thoroughly.
Chef Tom, question for you. Will that be dense when it comes out, or fluffy when it comes out of the oven?
It's not, no, it's, I don't know. I've never had it before. I'm going to be honest with you. I think it's a little bit like a quick bread, is my guess. So as I was mixing it, it reminded me a little bit of a fritter batter that didn't have enough flour. So the picture looked delicious. I actually can't wait to try it. So we're going to put this in our pan. I'm going to move it over to our oven. I have a convection oven set at 325. I know I said 350, but if you have a convection oven, you cook 25 degrees lower. Okay, because it produces the same amount of heat. So Steve's gonna put that on a 2-inch or a half tray and put that in the oven for us. And then while that's baking, I'm going to show you the icing. The icing is actually a cooked icing. You guys can get an overhead of this. Okay. So it's quarter pound of butter, half a cup of milk, We're gonna melt that. Half a cup of sugar. We're gonna whisk that together. Get that going. And we're gonna bring it to a boil. Somebody's parsley flew into the. Bring that to a boil. And then I have coconut and pecans and vanilla here. That's going to go into the cake. So first time I looked at it, I thought, boy, that really reminds me of German chocolate cake. So, and you're going to see that's what it looks like. I'm just going to get this. I just want to get this rolling so you see the finished product. Chef C is working on setting up his next dish. As soon as that butter melts, it's going to come up to a boil. It takes about 3 or 4 minutes to boil. So you get some of the caramelization going on. And after it comes to a boil and you get the color that you want, we add these ingredients and boom. Cook it for another minute and it's ready. You let it cool down and you pour it over the cake. After it comes out of the oven, it lets it cool for a little bit. All right, we're boiling. You guys are on it. I tell you, we are blessed to have a wonderful IT team here that they take this very serious about what we do. And I have to commend them. Our shows have gotten 100 times better. And a lot of it has to do with them. So.
Come a long way since
the kitchen in my house. So, all right, so that's boiling. That's only going to take a minute. So I'm going to move over here. Let Chef Steve kind of start his thing, and I'll show you what I'm doing in the process. Doing 2 at once here.
That's great. All right. So our next dish is something that's a little different that not everyone may have heard about before. Has anyone heard of a thing called cheesy bread? Chef Tom, have you?
I do. I've been making cheesy bread for about 40 years.
All right. Well, we're doing a twist on that today.
I know. I'm excited.
So we're doing a Cajun crawfish cheesy bread today. All right. So I have a French bread here that I cut in half, the whole length of it, so that it's open faced. And this is where you're going to bake your mixture at for your cheesy bread. All right. So first, we're going to start cooking some onion. Once our pan gets nice and hot, how's that coming together over there, Chef?
Getting there. Starting to smell good.
All right.
You don't want to take it too far. You can see this. You don't want to reduce too much liquid because you want to make sure you have enough icing. So I'm going to let Steve get his veggies started, and I'm going to finish this. Show you what happens when I toss this in.
All right. Start sauteing some onion. I know you're like, Chef Steve, that seems like a lot of onion. It is, but it's going to be going in a mixture. All right.
This is ready. All right, I'm going to add my coconut and my pecans to this.
That is neat.
I'm just going to stir it and mix it up. I'm just going to cook it for another couple minutes. That's actually the icing that's going to go on our cake.
All right. So something else I have here is our crayfish tails. I don't know if you guys could zoom in on that. So I chopped up some crayfish tails. And while this cooks, I'm going to show you how I got to that point of the tails. Turn that down a little bit. So I have some crayfish here.
Crawfish.
Crawfish. Sorry.
It's okay.
Crawfish.
Crayfish are in the Susquehanna.
I apologize for mispronouncing
That's okay.
it. So what you're going to do is the easiest thing to use is just the tail. So you're just going to, I don't know if someone can get the overhead on that for me. All right. So you're just going to pull the tail off. As you see, you have a little bit of meat here, and all you're going to do is just going to, when it's nice for you, it just pulls right out. Sometimes you might need to fidget with it just a little bit to get the meat out. Do another one here. Doesn't want to be nice to me today. If it doesn't work the way you would like it to, what you can do is break the tail, just pick off the meat around it. I'll show you what it should look like once it gets to that point. When it does come out in one piece, it looks like it's very small. It reminds you of a very, very small lobster tail, is what it resembles. And the tail is the easiest thing to use for your dish. The other ones, like you can get some meat out of the claws if you want to. They're just very, very tiny. This doesn't work the greatest. All right. Next, I'm going to add my parsley and my green onions in here. Only some of them. I'm just going to mix it up. All right, the next thing I'm going to add is some cream cheese. Now making some cheesy bread like we have here in the restaurant before, we don't use cream cheese. It just adds another component to it, another creaminess factor. All right. While that continues to cook and come together, I'm going to spread our mayonnaise mixture right on top of our bread. Gonna take it and do a nice coat right on top. And you want to make sure you spread it evenly all the way down, not too heavy. Then you want to do the same on your other piece as well. All right.
It'll look you good.
It will be a little thick. So it all gets incorporated.
You should work in drywall, Chef Steve.
I see that. All right. Move these out of the way.
We're almost there.
Almost there. All right.
I'm gonna just present the cake.
Yep. Yep.
So this is the finished product of what the cake looks like. This is the one I made this morning. So basically it looks like a yellow version of a pineapple upside down, or sorry, German chocolate cake. I dusted it with just a bit of powdered sugar, but it's a pineapple cake with a pecan coconut icing. So, can't wait to try it. For those of you that are in Harrisburg, come on over.
All right. As you can see, our mixture incorporated fully, and this is what you want it to look like before you spread it on top of your mayonnaise on your bread. Turn that off. What I'm gonna do, move this over top of here. You're just gonna spread it right on top. Making sure it's nice and even. Do the same to your other side. Can be a little messy. All right. Now I have two different kinds of cheeses here. I have some Parmesan. I have some cheddar jack. And you're just gonna distribute evenly between both sides.
Hey, Chef, we have a question in the chat. What was the icing on the cake?
So the icing on the cake was what I made with the coconut, pecans, and the milk that I cooked down. This is what this is right here. Kind of hard to see.
I'll get at it.
It's all right. It's all good.
One
But
sec.
that's what the icing is. So after the cake comes out of the oven, you let it cool for about 5 or 10 minutes. And then you spread the warm icing over and you let it set up. Takes about 30 to 45 minutes to set up.
All
That
right.
looks good.
So now I'm gonna bake it in the oven, and then we'll move on to our next dish.
Chef, we have another question for you all with the bread. Could you substitute shrimp for the crawfish?
Absolutely.
Yep. You could do crab too, if you got the budget.
All right. Next thing we're gonna do is something very interesting. Many of you probably have heard of po' boys before.
Sorry.
You're good.
Some rolls.
Po' boy is very traditional. People do oyster po' boys, they do shrimp po' boys. Today, we're gonna do a hot dog po' boy, a Cajun hot dog po' boy. Did some research on this, and it's something that is I'm very excited to present because it's not something you see all the time. All right, so first, we're gonna start with making our aioli. So our aioli is mayonnaise based. And gonna throw in some mayonnaise. Bunch of different seasonings. I got some cayenne, salt, garlic, parsley, onion powder. I'm sorry, garlic powder. A little bit of oil, some black pepper. I'm also going to throw in a little bit of our Cajun seasoning we got here. Some lemon. And we're just going to pulse that right up in our food processor. This is also very similar to a remoulade. It just has some different components in it than a remoulade would traditionally have. All right. So I'll show you our final product here. It has a tinge of orange, a reddish tint to it, and that's from all the different seasonings of all of our cayenne and our Cajun seasoning we got in there. All right, we're gonna set that aside. I have some hot dogs here that I'm just gonna score. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna throw them in the deep fryer. I know before we've talked about air fryer hot dogs, which are absolutely delicious. And the thing is, you wanna score your hot dogs before you put them in the fryer or in the air fryer. Just helps them cook more evenly. It's very similar to the same kind of concept whenever you go to a pizza shop and you get a stromboli and the top of it is vented. Just make scores the whole way down. All right, now we're gonna throw them in the deep fryer.
Ready for you, buddy. Bread's almost done.
All right. So while those are deep frying, I'm going to get some things set up to show you what we put on top of them. What I have here is some pickled okra. I did a quick pickle on them this morning. And this is what they look like in the jar and afterwards. Now, they would be a little bit better if I did them the night before, which you could definitely do, and then they could stay in the pickling liquid similar to pickles. They can stay there as long as you need them to. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna slice some pieces of this okra. So we have them as a garnish. Something with okra is it's very gummy. So a lot of people use it as thickeners, some in soups, some in dishes. It's just a very natural starchy product. All right, and I have some shredded cabbage here. I have some hot dog rolls.
So
Hot dog coming there.
they're great. We're showing them off right
All
now.
right.
Got a nice little score marks on it. Gives it some decoration. Right, gets the inside a little hotter. They look beautiful.
Thank you, Chef.
Yep.
All right. Got nice and crispy. And as you see, they didn't take too long at all.
Chef Steve, there's a question. How long and at what temperature do you air fry hot dogs?
At home, I air fry my hot dogs at 350. And I like mine like a little crispier. So I do like 5 to 8 minutes, depending on the kind of hot dog you have. Me personally, if you want them crispy, but you don't want them ultra like crispy, you could do them a little less. All right. So then we have our Cajun aioli here. Just gonna spread right over top of each of your hot dogs. Put a little bit of that cabbage right on top. Some of that pickled okra. All right. All right, I'm gonna get cleaned up here. What our hot dogs look like. All right, and we're gonna move on to our final dish.
Chef Steve, while you were doing that,
Yes,
I came up with this.
that looks awesome.
It came out very nice. That looks great. So this is our cheese bread presentation. I get a lot out of what he made. So that's only like 2/3 of one of the halves. All right. We're running out of space.
I see that.
So our last dish is a classic.
On the screen, you'll see the ingredients. That is indeed a close-up. And if anybody wants any of the ingredients that are currently being displayed, if you want the name of them, Chef Tom or Chef Steve will be more than happy to send that. You can certainly send an email to either castrawb@hack.edu, which I'll drop in the chat, or I'll drop Chef Tom and Chef Steve's email address. Again, if you want any of the recipe items, they will be more than happy to send it to you. And again, I'll drop that information in the chat.
What I need.
Thank you,
Skillet.
IP, for that close up.
Do this. Ah. Just a second. That's the problem. It could be. See if there's another one.
Yep.
We'll switch out stoves. Sorry about that. Had a busy morning. Should have checked. I apologize.
While Chef Steve is swapping out their email address, both Chef Tom and Chef Steve, email address is in the chat. Also, if you have not done so, if there's anybody on the bookstore that is here, if you can drop the link, don't forget about the cookbook from our very own. And so if you have not had the opportunity to purchase the cookbook, I encourage you all to do so. Again, if somebody's here from the bookstore, please drop that that link in the chat for me.
All right. Okay, so actually I'm going to need that.
Okay.
Bananas Foster is a classical Bourbon Street dessert. Has a history. It's a flaming dessert. So we're actually going to do a little flambe. I have a little bit of Myers rum here and a little bit of banana vodka. I'll try not to go crazy. But the dish actually was named after a crime commissioner from New Orleans, and it originated in Brennan's restaurant on Bourbon Street, and it was made on the fly. In other words, it was made real quick. The owner said, "Oh, Richard Foster is coming for dinner tonight. I want you to make something special." So they created this dessert and they named it after him, and it went crazy after that. So we're going to do one of the things that a lot of people do is make Bananas Foster French toast. So we're going to make the Bananas Foster topping. Our French toast is actually going to be, because it's down south, we're going to deep fry it instead of griddle it. You can deep fry French toast. You may not have ever heard of that, but it actually can be done. Oh, Chef, can you get that open?
What's up?
So step one is to get some butter melted. So we're going to do that. Don't need much of that. I have here some dark rum. You can use Captain Morgan or spiced rum, something like that. I have here pecans. I have here cinnamon. I have here an orange. I'm going to use juice of a half of an orange. And I have here bananas. So the best thing to do is have bananas that are just a little green. If they're if they start to get a little speckled, they get a little softer, and then that's not what you want. So we want them a little green.
While Chef Tom and Chef Steve are stirring and peeling the bananas, the link for the book is in the chat. I see a lot of newbies. So if you had not had the opportunity, again, the link for the book is in the chat. Don't miss your opportunity to purchase it. Some of these recipes are in, some of these recipes are new, but it is a fabulous cookbook. So I encourage you to please click on that link that is now in the chat and please purchase a copy of the book.
All right, so I'm gonna get my banana, while my butter's melting, I'm gonna get my bananas cut up and get them ready. This is a traditional table side dish. In other words, it's done at the table in front of the guest. I've actually done this for 200 people for a wedding. It was fun.
Did you do it in a dark room by chance?
I did. They actually, as soon as I added the alcohol, they cut the lights and the flames went up and lots of drama. All right, so my butter's melted. I'm gonna add my brown sugar. Get that going. So that's gonna start to make a little bit of a syrup. All right. So as that dissolves,
Let me know when you're getting ready to add the.
all right. I'll get this good and hot. There we go. Normally you use a spoon, but I'm out of spoons. So I'm gonna get that good and hot. It's gonna, and as the pan gets hot, that's what's gonna, as you hit the alcohol with the pan, that's what's gonna ignite your flames. All right. So if you notice, one thing I did not do is pour directly out of the bottle. All right, that's very dangerous. You always measure out what you're gonna add, and then you add it to it. Get our pan good and hot. Ready? Burning the alcohol off. Steve's our new light man. That's perfect. That was perfect. All right, just a little bit of the banana vodka because it's 80 proof. So we need a little bit of banana flavor. So I'm just gonna add some cinnamon. All right. That's how it sparkles when you add it. Some fresh orange juice. This helps to make the sauce. I'm gonna fry up my bread.
Okay.
Chef Steve's gonna start on the French toast. It's only gonna take a couple minutes for that. Now my sauce is almost ready. I like to add pecans to my banana foster because I think it gives it another taste texture. Traditionally, it did not have it. It just gives it a little more pizzazz. And then we're just gonna take our bananas. When we know our sauce is starting to just reduce a little bit, we're gonna take our bananas and put them in at the very end. And really, all we want to do is warm them. Okay. If Steve was taking our French toast, this is just traditional French toast batter. We're taking Texas toast. We're putting it right in the deep fryer. Takes about 1.5 to 2 minutes. Comes up nice and crispy. And it's just a different twist on French toast. And as your sauce, if your sauce is right, it should be nice and clear, have a shine to it. Okay, you see that? So I'm going to turn the heat off. I don't need to cook it anymore. I just need to keep it warm. Got one more banana I'm going to fire in here. while my French toast is getting ready. Okay. There we go, deep fried French toast, Southern style.
So it gets nice and crispy out right out of the fryer.
Put it right on there. I'm just gonna take it and cut it real quick. And it's nice and light and airy. Isn't anything like what you're used to. It still has that same cinnamon flavor that you're used to. And then we're just gonna top it with a little bit of our banana topping right down the middle. Man, does that look good. All right. That's our final dish for today. Chef Steve is cooking up some more French toast for our helpers. I want to say thank you to everybody that came out. If this is your first time, we're going to be doing the next one. Cindy's has the date for the next one and what it's going to be about. And we've enjoyed spending our time with you today. I know we went a little over an hour, but I guarantee you, I hope it was worth it for you to hang with us. Does anybody have any more questions?
I have also dropped in the chat for you all the next presentation. The date is in there along with the time, and it is in celebration of St. Patrick's Day and in honor of Women's Month. And so we are excited to see what they're going to do next month. And so please, it is March 11th. Again, all the information, including the Zoom link, is already in the chat. So you don't want to miss the opportunity to come back. Chef Tom, Chef Steve, there are a lot of thank yous. There were a lot of thank yous earlier. We had quite a few new people on, so we're excited. We thank you all for joining us. Again, if you have not had the opportunity, please purchase the cookbook. The link is in the chat, along with our next show. We'll be back here next month, March 11th, which is a Friday, and we will be here at 11:30 a.m. Oh, Nick's, thank you. Nick said everything looks fantastic, Chef Tom and Chef Steve. He's also a new employee, so we've had new employees here as well. I see some students. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Chef Tom, Chef Steve, final words.
So final words. So we are going to have a guest chef with us next month because of honor of the celebration of women. Diana McGurk, actually Master Sergeant Diana McGurk. She's 30 years retired military. Diana does most of our baking here at the Chef's Apprentice. She's a graduate of the pastry and baking program, and she's going to be with us next week in our next month in our next show. She's very excited. She's been working on recipes, so I can't wait to see what she's going to come up with.
Me either. I'm excited.
So thank you, everybody. It was a great time. Have fun. Don't forget to celebrate Mardi Gras.
Bye, everyone.